So this is our exciting talk about backing up your data and why do we back up and what are backups? How are backups different than just storing things in the cloud? And what kind of strategies should we use in our backups? We have this IT rule that you probably heard it from me sometime, called 3-2-1. We have to make things easy because guys that sit in basements all day, they don't want to have to memorize something difficult. And 3-2-1 breaks down generally to be 3 copies of your files. So if you're going to take the time to make a file, you don't necessarily want to just throw it away, so you're going to have a copy of it somewhere. But 1 copy is not enough. You really want to have 3 copies of your data. That's the copy that you're working with, the backup of your copy, and then the backup of the backup. Said what? Trust me, we'll get there. You want to have it on 2 different media types. That is the drive on your computer. Let's say when you turn your computer on, it has an SSD, a solid state drive. Or you might have, like many of the newer laptops have now, an NVMe drive, a non-volatile memory express drive. They're very fast. So that's great. But when your drive fails, because they do all fail eventually, you want to make sure you have it backed up on a different drive. So maybe if your primary drive is an NVMe fast drive, then you also have an SSD on your desktop, or you have a hard drive, external hard drive plugged into your laptop where you can have those backups. And then, and this really comes from disaster planning and business continuity, we want to think about what if we're on vacation and something terrible happens to the house or the condo that we live in. Dogs break in, or heaven forbid there's a fire. That's certainly something we have to think about in some parts of California. If my Mac is sitting on my desk next to me and my backup is on a hard drive on the desk and the building burns down, heaven forbid, well, where are all my backups? Well, right now I got a backup on the NAS over there on the other side of the room and a backup on the hard drive right next to the Mac. So you want to have one of those that are off-site somewhere. And there's different strategies. One strategy is to pay for a service like Carbonite or Backblaze, or if you're going to be sophisticated, something like Amazon S3 or B2, to have your backup somewhere that isn't next to your computer. So 3 copies of the data. So in this case, it would be 1 on your laptop where you're working, and then 1 backed up to the hard drive connected to your laptop, and then maybe 1 that syncs to your backup somewhere. Maybe you purchase a OneDrive subscription and you have that 1 terabyte, and you have that on a folder somewhere that doesn't synchronize with your computer. You say, this is my backup folder, or you pay for Carbonite or Backblaze. That would mean that if anything were to go wrong, you could still find your data. So that's our rule, our 3-2-1. And one of the reasons that we try to have different types of media that we store things on is because the media fails. I mean, even in business, you'll have your hard drive on your computer and you'll back things up to the network drive, and the network drives are going to be backed up to tape. You said, wait, what? Did he say tape? Yeah, enterprises are still backing up to tape, and they have little robots that move the tapes around, and tape backup is pretty slow compared to what we're used to, but can hold, 48, 100 terabytes per tape, depending on what's going on now, at least 40 terabytes. And then you can store tapes for years and years and years and years in the safe. So our SSD is not going to last 10 years. Our NVMe drive might not last 10 years, but our hard drive might. So having the different types of storage is a good way for us to keep those backups. Now, when we had less data, putting some backups on DVD, like a writable DVD, was a very slow method, but I still have some backups from DVDs that I wrote to DVD in the old days, and 15 years later, I can still read that data. So that's not a bad strategy, although the optical media will eventually fail also. So what does that mean? If your hard drive fails, it will fail. Your hard drive will fail. Your USB drive will fail. Your SSD will fail. When your hard drive fails, well, hard drives are a little more forgiving because they have these platters inside that are spinning around, usually 7,200 RPMs. And there's a magnetic indicator for the data. So it puts a magnetic charge or removes the charge to keep track of the data. You can get hard drives that are 2 terabytes, 8 terabytes, 16 terabytes, 28 terabytes. They're making special hard drives that are even bigger into the 30s and 40s for lots of money. But I think for probably around $500 today, which is a lot of money, by the way, that's a lot. You can get 28 terabyte backup drive. That's tons of storage. I don't want you to spend $500. You could almost buy a new MacBook Neo for that much. But the idea is maybe an 8 terabyte backup drive will hold multiple backups of your computer, because most of our computers only have 1 or 2 terabytes of storage anyway, which is a ridiculous thing to say if you've been dealing with file storage for a long time. 1 or 2 terabytes. It's amazing. So hard drives can and do fail. They will fail eventually. Backblaze puts out an annual report of their hundreds and hundreds of hard drives, and they're seeing 1 to 1.7% of annual failure rate among their hundreds of hard drives that are being written to 24/7. And that's pretty standard across data centers. The hard drives fail, and they're kind of slow, but they're good for long-term storage. They're good for very large files. So then what's faster? SSDs. SSDs have been around for a long time now. There's no moving parts. And actually, you can shout at a hard drive and cause it to have an error because your voice will shake the cylinders that are being read. You can't shout at a solid-state drive and cause an error, but they can get hot. SSDs can get hot. So their failure rate is a little bit less, but their failures are a little more catastrophic. So when your hard drive fails, well, you can oftentimes get some of the data, if not all of the data, back off of your hard drive. But when your solid state drive fails, you just lose everything. I'm not aware of being able to recover data off an SSD. I have personally helped out clients where one day they turned on their laptop and they got a black screen, and that was it. The SSD was dead. It was gone. So then you have to replace the SSD in the computer, test it, of course, make sure it's really dead, put it on an external reader or something, and then reinstall the operating system and restore from backup. And I was talking with a buddy of mine recently that does some home IT, like he goes to small businesses and homes to do IT. I asked him about NVMEs, and he laughed at me and he said, I've got dozens of dead NVMe drives lying around. And I was surprised because I thought they were better because they're so fast. The NVMe drives are amazing. But these are solid state. So let's also look at, everybody has flash drives lying around. Those flash drives are going to fail. They will fail on you. And hopefully you won't have your flash drive as your primary backup, because I don't want you to be failing in tears either. USB drives can be very difficult to recover data from. I have spent quite a bit of time trying to help people who had their everything on one flash drive, and they took it from one computer to another, and that drive failed, and that was it for them. So flash drives are very convenient and they're great, but you got to copy on your computer, you copy it to the flash drive, you go put it wherever you're going to copy it to, and then don't rely on the flash drive anymore. So how can I break that down for you in this little table, NVMe and SSDs? When you turn your computer on, that's probably what you have. They're very fast. They don't fail very often. They're also not as huge. You're not going to get an 8 terabyte SSD without paying lots of money. Whereas an 8 terabyte hard drive is what, $100 or something, $120. So your regular SSD, very fast. It's great for booting your computer. The NVMe drive is much faster, like 10 times or more faster. Those are both good for your regular day-to-day use. Hard drive, it's good for your external backup. They're much bigger capacity, lower cost. USB drives, those are not your backups. I just want to emphasize, your USB drive is not a good backup. It will fail. Use them all day. Just have a backup. So when it fails, you're not worried about it. So I can't say this enough. Your hard drive will fail. Your SSD will fail. It may be that you have a 2012 MacBook Air that's running like a champ. I'm not using that 2012 MacBook Air all day, every day, but I was able to get the hard drive speed back up, and it runs great when I want to run SpinRite on something. But just make the assumption that whatever you're using your computer right now, that's going to fail and you're going to lose the data that's on that. So let's make sure that we have 3 copies of our data on 2 different media types, and one of those locations is not sitting next to your computer. Maybe it's just on the other side of the house in the garage, or maybe you put it in your fireproof safe. Maybe you throw a hard drive in your safety deposit box. Maybe you're very technical and you've got a buddy that lets you put a drive in their house. There's lots of strategies to keep one out of your house. But then once in a while, just go and back up a file and make sure everything's working. This is the overlooked part. Like, we have our backups. All right, my phone's backed up. But is it really backed up? Because if you try to restore it, is it going to be there? So every now and then, go to Backblaze, go to Carbonite, go to your NAS software, and just see, can I restore a file that I had on my desktop a while ago? Give it a try. All right, so that's all for the YouTube version. I'll continue in class. Thank you very much.